Ready? Okay. Hi, this is Aaron. This is Aaron Murakami with the Bedini-Lindeman 2013 conference. Basically, I was the primary coordinator for the event up in Hayden, Idaho, which we just had this weekend. And we had a handful of speakers, and sitting with me here is the legendary Eric Dollard, who was kind enough to come up, and he gave a 2-hour presentation at the end, which followed up with about a half an hour of questions. And so, as many of you know who's been following Eric's work, there's a whole compendium of articles and research papers and schematics, how-to stuff, theory stuff that Eric has been sharing, and people like David Webster and John Polakowski has been helpful by kind of organizing that and typing it up on the forum so everybody can read that. And if you want to follow and learn more about Eric's work, there are 3 different threads at energeticforum.com. There's one called Whatever Happened to Eric Dollard. The second thread is Eric P. Dollard, and then the third thread is Eric Dollard. They all kind of go in sequence. The reason there's 3 threads is there was a few issues with a couple of them, so I had to lock them just to kind of preserve them so none of the information disappeared. And so right now there is an Eric Dollard thread, and that is live and active. Eric still participates in that, and little by little a lot of the work is going to be compiled and organized under energyscienceforum.com. At the conference this weekend in Hayden, which was extremely successful. I mean, we just heard so many rave reviews about literally every single speaker. Everybody was in love with the topics. There was a lot of conversations, a lot of good social networking time, in between the break time and after the conference was over on all 3 days. And so as part of the agenda on the last day before Eric's talk, there was going to be a discussion panel with all the speakers, moderated by Jean Manning, who is the author of Breakthrough Power. And we'll give links to her website so you can follow up on her blog and see some of the articles and some of the work she's involved in. And so with the schedule that we had, we were kind of slammed, and so we weren't able to do the discussion panel at the conference. So what I'm doing is collecting the questions from different people, directed generally to any of the speakers, and some of the questions are directed directly to Eric. And so what I'm going to do is take time to get these questions answered and interview each of the speakers if they happen to be here in the local area, at least for the moment. And the ones who are going to be out of town, such as Jim Murray, I'll have to do something probably over the phone. And so you can look for follow-up interviews with the other speakers at the conference, like Jim Murray, Peter Lindeman, Paul Babcock, and so forth later, and they'll all be in a series on either YouTube or somewhere, but I'll make the links available. So first of all, do you have any comments or anything that you want to talk about as far as the conference is involved in your lecture, which was...
Well, you probably should point out, you brought up the thing about the book. You probably should explain that,
Okay.
It was a hurried effort, and
Yeah.
and like you did on the previous tape.
Okay. So with Eric's talk, the title of the talk was the symbolic representation of electricity, or the four-quadrant representation of electricity, based on Eric's 4-quadrant theory. That if you've been following Eric's work, you know about his 4-quadrant theory, but chances are you may not know what it means, or may not understand it. There's some old books or papers written back in the Borderland days, which was kind of intended for PhDs and people who have pretty advanced understanding in electrical engineering anyway. And so when we're putting together this conference, and Eric was invited to be one of the speakers, kind of had a brainstorm to, well, actually in Energetic Forum we kind of took a survey to see what most people wanted to learn about, and it was the 4-quadrant theory. And before the conference there wasn't really like a layman's guide or something that kind of followed through all the history on the path that Eric took mathematically to arrive at his 4-quadrant theory. And so the purpose of this talk was to kind of bridge the gap between the layman and his theory, even though the intent was to get a little bit heavy into the mathematics towards the end, but start with a very metaphysical background, starting with Pythagoras and looking at the history of mathematics and how it all kind of ties in. And So Eric didn't have a whole lot of time to be able to prepare his whole presentation how he wanted. The presentation on the slideshow presentation was about 2 hours. There's about half an hour of questions that followed up. But throughout the process of Eric putting together that presentation, he had written literally about 500 pages of notes to be able to compile that talk, and still wasn't able to get all the information into the presentation he wanted. So there was a good handful of slides going into the math and stuff that he had to skip over just because of the time limit that we had to work with. And so besides the video presentation, there will be a book coming out in the near future when Eric has time to go back down south and work on his book. That may take a couple months to compile it, and that will be a companion book to the video presentation, so you have the full, well-rounded presentation along with the math and deeper explanations on it. So if you missed anything in the presentation or didn't understand it, Eric will have gone into pretty complete detail in the book, so that will be coming out. And when Eric's four-quadrant theory presentation that he had at the conference comes out, it will be available at fourquadranttheory.com. Four is spelled out, F-O-U-R, quadranttheory.com. Not only will the video presentation be there first, but when the book is available, it'll be on that same website. And so, besides that, should I just go into a few of the questions and stuff? And I didn't really have time to look over all these questions, so I'll just go ahead and read them out, and Eric can just go ahead and answer. Let's see. Okay, here's one. This is basically directed to everyone, so I'll be asking all the speakers this particular question. So, and I don't know who these came from. They didn't write their names. But the first question is, how do we get this information into the public arena so an individual can be free in America?
Oh, I don't know.
Next question.
That's what the internet's about.
You know, and that's where you know, these presentations come into play. If you go to emediapress.com, for example, we have a series of presentations and different book and video presentations that we've been putting out for quite a while. You know, there are other publishing organizations and forums and stuff with their own information, but besides the last year's presentations, these will be available. So, you know, if you go to fourquadranttheory.com when we release Eric's latest talk, that is basically putting it into the public arena where you can go and get it and, you know, experiment with the concepts. And so,
Yeah.
You know, not sure how else to answer that other than...
Well, it's kind of too general for me.
Yeah.
So you got to be free in your head before you can be free in America.
And let's see. Would it be possible to build a solid state circuit, I'm assuming, that pulses with a variable resistor to dial in the frequency?
I don't really know what he's saying.
Variable resistor to dial in the frequency. Okay. And I can edit this out, so just skip this one and go to the next.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's not. Would it be possible to build a solid state circuit
I don't know what
that
he's trying to
pulses?
say. Yeah, the first one's the same way. You know, a lot of these things are kind of gibberal.
Okay. Okay, so next question is, does anyone have experience with, in quotes, cold flames, and is there any useful devices that use it or make it?
Not that I know of.
Cold flames. I guess just hot. Now you've done some like audio flame stuff. That's not related to any of this, or?
Well,
that's
it
like
tries to
hot.
be interpreted like that, but it's not. It's actually very hot.
Very hot?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know if that's what they're referring to, but that's kind of a general question.
Well, it's the cold electricity idea, but there really isn't anything working in that regard. So it's more of an idea than an actuality.
Right. Okay. Let's see. Does anyone have a recent study? Does anyone have a recent story of suppression for making a device or giving information? Real suppression from an organized group, not just naysayers.
Yeah, Greenpeace and my RCA book and my RCA history. They're totally against anything relating to Tesla or Marconi or Alexanderson.
And specifically related to a
They
certain...
have specifically, when we started to put this stuff out on the internet, they specifically threatened the person that was putting out on the internet and forced him to take it off. So it's not a story.
Right. So, and that kind of leads into here in the near future, possibly at the same time as Eric's conference presentation, there is a series of books that go into the wireless transmission facility at Bolinas.
Right.
Where a lot of that stuff happened, right?
The whole history unfolded there.
And so, and one of the books is pretty thick, and it's one that you've compiled. Took quite how many years?
Well, it's hard to say. About 3 to 4 years.
Right.
Altogether.
And
the other one written by the historian took him a year to put together.
And that's The Wireless Giant of the Pacific.
Yeah.
And that book was a book for hire by the Department of the Interior to
right.
kind of do a historical...
Yeah, basically to match my own study and statements on the facility.
Right. And so that book, a full copy of that is actually going to be included with the work that Eric has compiled on, there's articles, schematics, patents.
Yeah, it's very pictorial orientated. Mine is anyway.
Right.
And then the historian one is very detailed about, the people, who did what, and the dates. The businesses changed hands and the call letters. It's excellent, excellent references on everything
right.
that happened out there.
And along with that package, there's like 2 other documents that seem to be excerpts
those are related to 2 lectures I gave at the San Francisco Tesla Society, which were basically immediately blocked from any public acquisition, suppressed, in other words,
yeah.
by the San Francisco Tesla Society, which has suppressed every lecture that I've given there.
Right. So, so here in the near future, Eric's work, that work that was put together as a historical, basically to preserve the history of that area and kind of document it and everything, along with a couple other excerpts from some of these older books, along with patents and everything else that goes along with the whole Bolinas RCA topic. That's basically going to be released as a full package that we'll be giving the website out on that at some point, but it's not going to be too far from now. It's most likely going to be right after Eric's 4quadranttheory.com presentation is going to be released, and both on that download page and at emediapress.com there will be a link going directly to that package, which goes into all the history, technical history, and otherwise on the Bolinas RCA incident.
Right.
Let's see. Could you talk about 100% efficient transformers, why we don't make them anymore, and what we might use them for if we did?
I've never known the existence of a transformer to have 100%.
Yeah. Because there's always going to be losses no matter what.
Well, there's the rotary converter that was on that Borderland video that was greater than 100%. So you could say that's a transformer.
Yeah.
But in the most general sense, I think here they're
right.
talking about a winding type of transformer. Transformers actually become much more efficient than they used to because of the better core material. So they're smaller now.
Right.
So I don't know what to make of that.
Okay. But in any case, transformers are getting more efficient.
Yeah.
Smaller.
More compact.
More compact.
Yeah.
So I know that when we're driving around and you're looking up at the power things, you're noticing these transformers.
They're much smaller. Yeah,
much
they
smaller,
don't need as much cooling as they used to.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. Is there some way, either from what we've heard this weekend or beyond, to take an electric car and make it capable of going indefinitely with another charge from standard sources?
No, not any way that I know of.
And so what's, on that topic, what's your opinion of the story about the Tesla car, that Pierce Arrow, that electric car that just...
It's a story.
And not much documentation about what...
I haven't really run across anything about that.
Yeah.
In Tesla's own writings.
Right.
If somebody can find it, I mean, that'd be one thing, but I've never run across it.
Right.
I think a lot of that stuff was pandered by the Tesla disinformant Arthur Matthews. He was one of the principal Tesla disinformers in the beginning of all this.
Just get people on the wrong track.
Yeah,
And waste a lot of time.
Then Tom Bearden was the next one. And there's some other guy, I think his name is Schwartz or something, I forget right off. He's another Tesla disinformer. So there's a pretty solid group of Tesla disinformation out there. And most of the stuff that you think you know about Tesla, you don't. It's really these guys' stories.
Right.
And they weave them in with the truth, and then nobody knows the difference anymore.
Right. Because you find enough evidence of the true things, and you assume,
yeah,
well, it's all
so, but that's not to say that Tesla didn't make something like that. But,
right.
But, you know, that's not to say that Tesla didn't do anything.
Right. You just haven't had your hands on the evidence.
You know, you can. That's the problem. You can just make up any story you want about Tesla because he's an enigma. So that makes him available for everybody's fish story.
Right. A lot of mysticism.
Yeah.
And stuff. Let's see. Which new energy technologies seem closest to being sold and accepted by the mainstream?
I have no idea.
Yeah, I just see a lot of claims in the articles on the different sites and stuff.
I just ignore all of it.
Well, it seems the same story. There's a big press release and something's supposed to be launched, and then a couple weeks later it disappears. And
the only valid method I see is the dielectric hysteresis of water to turn it into hydrogen. That definitely appears to be the route. It's synthesizing energy.
And it's like an electrostatic separation of water, or like
I haven't done it myself, but it's dielectric rather than electrolytic.
Uh-huh.
It's AC rather than DC.
Uh-huh.
It's also based on harmonics.
Okay.
And it takes no energy to separate the water. So, but energy is released if you combine them in the normal manner. So, in that case, then one could say that energy is being synthesized.
Right.
Because there's none of there's no correlation. The watt meter in and the watt meter out are not reading the same thing. The watt meter out is reading more.
So it's not directly proportionate.
No,
there's no relationship, no direct relationship.
Well, there will be some kind of proportionality, but there will not be the ratio will not be unity.
Yeah.
It'll be something else.
Do you know anywhere that there's any papers on?
There's all kinds of material on it, but I don't have any access to that. But one person that I do know, who's not one to make up stories, apparently has perfected his own system. Based on a discussion we had on this stuff a long time ago, as he actually started experimenting and was capable of doing it.
Right.
The complication was separating the hydrogen and oxygen. That required some really advanced technology.
And
but if you don't want to separate the hydrogen and oxygen, then this is the regular, capacitor type structures.
Right.
And how the gas is going to get out without insulating the electrodes. Those are usually your main complications. And then what kind of waveform are you going to use to maximize the process? So it relates very closely with extracting gold from tailings and clay deposits. That's how I came about a lot of this stuff.
Right.
Because most of my stuff is either Navy or mining. So one of those two, and it's definitely something that the mining industry is interested in.
Right. Okay. Let's see, his other question, what technologies and inventors in new energy are most exciting to you right now?
None.
That you know of?
None. Nobody.
Let's see. Talking about a specific circuitry, but no reference to which one. Let's see.
Well, I didn't show any circuits.
Yeah, it might have been a reference to something else at the conference. Okay, for Eric, not a question, just a comment. I only stumbled upon your work about a year ago, heartbroken over what you were forced to endure, delighted to see you well. I hope everyone in attendance here makes it their resolve to assist you in your work in whatever way they can. You're a gift to us all and an inspiration to persevere. So, just a comment from a fan there.
That's good.
Let's see. Here's a paper which I'm not going to get into here, but this was written up by Mark McKay. Mark McKay is a very talented engineer who was a speaker at last year's conference. He's gone probably more into the so-called Ed Gray technology, which was really developed by Marvin Cole. Flown around, met his family. That video is available from last year. And this year we invited him as a guest to kind of hang out, because he's been working on, been a fan of Eric Dollard's for a long time, and has worked on some experiments, and one that he was trying to get going, and it just didn't quite tune up right and everything. He actually brought it out to the conference, and Eric had a chance to look over it, and they did some adjustments and got it working. Do you want to kind of explain a little bit about what that whole experiment is?
Well, the thing we were after was duplicating Tesla's idea of radiant matter.
Okay.
And we achieved that.
Right.
And one of the outstanding effects is charging a capacitor through free space to DC without any wire connection.
Right. Not even one wire, but no wire.
Well, there's one wire to ground.
Yeah.
But one pole has to be earth, but the other end is capable of receiving the electricity when it becomes immersed in the sheath of radiant matter. That's what we determined.
Right.
So there's a sheath of radiant matter that extends a certain distance, and if I put my hand in there, and it was shown if whoever videoed it, I charged my body with what radiant matter I accumulate out of my hands to a potential of about 5,000 volts.
Right.
So it's all still very experimental and exploratory,
right.
and
right.
a lot of development. The other aspects of why I originally built that weren't demonstrated, in that it transmitted electricity from one transformer to the other.
Mm-hmm.
But we weren't interested in that. The main focus was on getting the radiant matter thing going.
Mm-hmm. And so the capacitor was basically held up to a light bulb in between these two antenna coils.
Yeah, the light bulb was in the transmission path between the two coils, and then inductance was inserted there to back up the EMF to the point where the light bulb had a high potential writing on top of it, mm-hmm. with respect to its own internal filament voltage drop and earth.
Right.
Probably about maybe several thousand volts.
Right.
But Tesla impulses. It
right.
wasn't just alternating current.
Mm-hmm.
So once we got the thing that produced the impulses, then we got the radiant matter effect. Mm-hmm. So it was quite satisfying to have all that work out, and everybody could actually put their hands on it and feel it.
Feel the little buzzing or
it's
pressure,
like a pressure in your hands. Yeah.
Yeah, and some of the sparks from the capacitors, at least a couple of them were 5,000 volts.
Yeah, some. I think I was as high as maybe 8,000 or 10,000 volts.
Yeah.
Some of them.
Right. Just by holding up to the light bulb, charges up and.
Right.
And so.
So we went through everything. It wasn't gas in the bulb. It was a vacuum bulb. It wouldn't do it with the filament turned off, so it was definitely thermionic. And it had to be the thermionic particles, but the Tesla impulses projected them through the glass, just like Tesla said it would. And you can feel them and charge a capacitor off of them.
Right.
And it would charge up material objects and pull them towards the bulb.
Right.
It showed that too.
And it showed off the bingo machine.
Well, that was the transmission side, because the thing wasn't totally symmetrical and it wasn't totally isolated, so
right.
all electronic devices in the building took a squat.
Right. Yeah, they were in the middle of a bingo game in the other room at this facility. In the middle of one of the demos, the bingo game went off. The bingo board. So so this paper by Mark McKay just kind of details a little bit of the history, some of the pictures of this.
Some of the history in there of how it got moved around and all that's not quite accurate. We have to correct that later. Mm-hmm. So,
but it'll
the
have
technical part's okay.
Some of the diagram of the antenna.
There's a few things left out in the diagram. I think he's going to probably have to redo that a little bit.
So so when this is ready, this will be available. This will be available in one of the forums or on a YouTube video or something like that. So an actual experiment that you can actually build, because it'll have all the parts, the specs and everything, put it together, so you can try to replicate this and learn about that concept. I don't know, anything else to go over? Or?
Yeah, it'll be pretty hard to replicate, because you have to have that pulse source, which in this case is that diathermy oscillator.
Which are pretty hard to find in good shape.
Yeah, otherwise, a whole radar pulse modulator has to be assembled from scratch.
Which you said is actually going to be better than that one, because it doesn't have all the noise.
Yeah, that's really the way to go. So this was just this was a reenactment of the way that I did it.
Right.
Mine kind of operated a little better because I had calculated everything and it all tuned up, and by some strange miracle, I didn't have to tune anything. The capacitors just were all the right size.
On the original
demo. One that I built to show in Colorado, that video got suppressed also.
And that was
but I have a rough copy of it that I've been trying to get out, but unfortunately nobody's interested in it and helping me do it. That was for the U.S. Psychotronics Association.
Right.
They will not allow anyone to see that video.
And was that in 1989?
That was the Borderland I did afterwards because I wasn't going to allow myself to be suppressed.
Yeah.
So a large quantity of money was given to me to set up this laboratory with all its inventory, which of course was all lost. And then of course I had to glean the entirety of LA to get all those parts, so now none of them are available, and the people that I got them from are all dead. So that's a serious complication. It's really, when something gets destroyed, there's not really much of a way I can put it back together again.
Right.
So I think the Golden, Colorado Psychotronics thing was probably 86 maybe, something like that. Right. And then that led to enough support to put the thing together, the same equipment, but to set it up in the Borderland video. Right. And I wanted to get that all thoroughly documented. So Peter Lindeman and Tom Brown and myself and my friend David Franklin and I think Chris Carson all worked a lot of work went on behind the scenes to get that all set up. And then the intent was to make an undisputable video, and also to make a mockery out of the people that wouldn't like it, because none of this stuff's ever going to be accepted, so why be nice? There wasn't any point in being nice. So you can see our beer bottles in the background and the whole deal.
Right.
So.
Right.
But the thing is no one else has ever been able to do that. So Mark got to the step now that he's somebody else that did it.
Right.
How many years later? Quite a few.
23?
Yeah, 23 years later.
Yeah.
So that's why my beard's not black anymore like it is in the video.
Right. So out of everything, if there's one experiment that you would recommend the beginner to start experimenting with,
I put all kinds of stuff out on the energetic forum.
The crystal radio.
It just has to be compiled in
Right.
a way that people can get to it.
And
so the crystal radio initiative was to use a Tesla transformer as a crystal radio receiver, which of course requires no power. It powers itself off the AM transmitter. And then the thing was to optimize that and light a light bulb off the AM transmitter. The other thing was the cosmic ray detector to ascertain the nature of the Tesla rays that Tesla talks about, using existing parts and technologies, and it would also work like a Geiger counter, ring a phone bell every time there was a radiation hit. Unfortunately, people just don't seem interested in that stuff and never went anywhere with it, but it's all there.
Now, didn't John Polakowski put his replication of that?
Well, he was working on the magnetic amplifier. That was the most important thing of all, because that deals with the energy synthesis or desynthesis. But then he decided he wanted to build his own cosmic induction generator, so unfortunately that distracted the whole project. So he's involved in that now. But that's something I already did. The magnetic amplifier stuff I haven't, other than one childhood mishap when I was in high school in my laboratory with a three-phase transformer operating on single phase. Went into some kind of parametric oscillation and would burn up all the wiring in the power supply, and the transformer would catch on fire. Right. It wasn't desirable. Later on, I finally realized what was going on. Nobody at RCA knew. So, and then Steinmetz has a couple of chapters in his AC book about this stuff, that fascinating experimental possibilities. So that all got compiled into something I put on the energetic forum called the Law of Electromagnetic Induction. I probably learned more from it than anybody will that read it. So that is a good way to get an understanding of all that. And then all the stuff that people are talking about with, their capture the back EMF and all that kind of malarkey is I wrote something called the, I forget, like 4-quadrant, I forget what it is now.
Some magnetic energy exchange.
Yeah, 4-quadrant energy exchanges and magnetic and dielectric. Those are all singled out on that Gestalt reality. So the 4 papers of prominence that I wrote in that interval, all on whatever you call it that he's got it on.
Right. And little by little over time, a lot of these papers are, see, at Energetic Forum, everything is all rolled into one discussion, so it's kind of hard to go through and sort through to find, you know, what posts go to what topic. And so little by little, those are all going to be cataloged and indexed, and each paper will be its own discussion, and those will be put into EnergyScienceForum.com and the Eric Dollard forum. So it'll be a whole forum dedicated to Eric's work, which each discussion topic will be on one specific paper, so it doesn't get all mixed around. You know, the conversation stays on topic for that particular topic. So it'll be easier to read, easier to understand and learn from. And you don't have to scan through hundreds or thousands of posts. And so one thing I want to mention is with Eric's presentation coming out on 4quadranttheory.com is that, for example, when you know, when I'm launching these presentations, it is actually through an affiliate program through ClickBank, and we offer 60% referral commission to anybody who wants to refer a cell. But what we've done is we've set up an affiliate link specifically for Eric, and instead of being an affiliate yourself and earning the commission, I'm going to be making that link available to everybody who wants to support Eric's work. So if you have a website or a forum or any kind of YouTube channel and you want to highlight Eric's work and support him in that way, utilize that link, and each time somebody clicks on that link and gets a copy of Eric's presentation, 60% will be going towards Eric's work. And yeah, that's a nice, simple, free, easy way to support what he's doing, so Eric can continue to work on his experiments at his lab and continue to release more information. So I guess.
Yeah, that's kind of an important thing, because the amount of money it took to get the building and all that type of stuff was so hideous that there's really no money to do anything with it.
Right.
And there's still a lot of things to be done yet to even get it to the point where I could do something with it. So I don't know how that's going to work out.
Right. So, and if you want to know when Eric's presentation is coming out, you can, you know, either through energeticforum.com or energyscienceforum.com, or you can even go to emediapress.com, where we'll have a catalog of all the presentations. There is a newsletter sign up there called Energy Times. If you sign up on that, it'll be announced on that. I'm sure on ericdollard.com, which, well, that forwards to etherforce.com now.
Yeah, that's not really a direct output for me. So
yeah,
that's more of an auxiliary thing. So
right. So they may announce it there. And so anyway, thanks for listening. And you know, if you have any questions, there's always the forum that you can go post those in. And when Eric gets a chance, he looks through those, and there'll be an answer.
Yeah. Plus, there's other people there too that are you know, aware of it now, where they can
right.
answer the question without me even seeing it.
Right.
So I became less inclined to be involved in the Energetic Forum because I put a lot of material out there, and there was just not enough interest or activity to really keep doing it. But,
yeah.
But if it becomes of more interest and more activity, then I'm more interested in being involved with it. But living in the bushes, you have to remember that emails and Facebooks and none of those things have any relevance.
Ready? Okay. Hi, this is Aaron. This is Aaron Murakami with the Bedini-Lindeman 2013 conference. Basically, I was the primary coordinator for the event up in Hayden, Idaho, which we just had this weekend. And we had a handful of speakers, and sitting with me here is the legendary Eric Dollard, who was kind enough to come up, and he gave a 2-hour presentation at the end, which followed up with about a half an hour of questions. And so, as many of you know who's been following Eric's work, there's a whole compendium of you know, articles and research papers and schematics, you know, how-to stuff, theory stuff that Eric has been sharing, and people like David Webster and John Fulikowski has been helpful by kind of organizing that and typing it up on the forum so everybody can read that. And if you're as part of the agenda on the last day before Eric's talk, there was going to be a discussion panel with all the speakers, moderated by Jean Manning, who is the author of Breakthrough Power, and we'll give links to her website so you can follow up on her blog and see some of the articles and some of the work she's involved in. And so with the schedule that we had, we were kind of slammed, and so we weren't able to do the discussion panel at the conference. So what I'm doing is collecting the questions from different people, directed generally to any of the speakers, and some of the questions are directed directly to Eric. And so what I'm going to do is take time to get these questions answered and interview each of the speakers if they happen to be here in the local area, at least for the moment. And the ones who are going to be out of town, such as Jim Murray, I'll have to do something probably over the phone. And so you can look for follow-up interviews with the other speakers of the conference, like Jim Murray, Peter Lindeman, Paul Babcock, and so forth later, and they'll all be in a series on either YouTube or somewhere, but I'll make the links available. So first of all, do you have any comments or anything that you want to talk about as far as the conferences involved in your lecture, which was...
Well, probably should point out, you brought up the thing about the book. You probably should explain that,
Okay.
It was a hurried effort, and
Yeah.
and like you did on the previous tape.
Okay. So with Eric's talk, the title of the talk was the symbolic representation of electricity, or the four-quadrant representation of electricity, based on Eric's four-quadrant theory. That if you've been following Eric's work, you know about his four-quadrant theory, but chances are you may not know what it means, or may not understand it. There's some old books or paper want to follow and learn more about Eric's work. There are 3 different threads at energeticforum.com. There's one called Whatever Happened to Eric Dollard. The second thread is Eric P. Dollard, and then the third thread is Eric Dollard. They all kind of go in sequence. The reason there's 3 threads is there was a few issues with a couple of them, so I had to lock them just to kind of preserve them so none of the information disappeared. And so right now there is an Eric Dollard thread, and that is live and active. Eric still participates in that. And little by little, a lot of the work is going to be compiled and organized under energyscienceforum.com. At the conference this weekend in Hayden, which was extremely successful. I mean, we just heard so many rave reviews about, literally every single speaker. Everybody was in love with the topics. There was a lot of conversations, a lot of good social networking time, in between the break time and after the conference was over on all 3 days. And it's written back in the Borderland days, which was kind of intended for, PhDs and people who have, pretty advanced understanding in electrical engineering anyway. And so when we're putting together this conference, and Eric was invited to be one of the speakers, kind of had a brainstorm to, well, actually in Energetic Forum we kind of took a survey to see what most people wanted to learn about, and it was the four-quadrant theory. And before the conference there wasn't really like a layman's guide or something that kind of followed through all the history on, the path that Eric took mathematically to arrive at his four-quadrant theory. And so the purpose of this talk was to kind of bridge the gap between the layman and his theory, even though the intent was to get a little bit heavy into the mathematics towards the end, but start with a very metaphysical background, starting with Pythagoras and looking at the history of mathematics and how it all kind of ties in. And